The working class and their struggles have been the subject of many films over many years. Naturally, as the working class changes, their representation in film will change as well. This led me on to the question, how does the modern representation of the working class criticize capitalism? Traditional representations of the working and lower class mainly came through a Marxist perspective, through early filmmakers like Sergei Eisenstein or later Jean-Luc Godard. These older filmmakers tried to inspire change through their films, often calling for a revolution or a restructuring of the society they lived in. But modern films of similar topic don't seem to follow this trope. The two films I have chosen are Nomadland and Parasite, as they both criticize capitalism through the lens of the working class and were made in the last 2 years. I believe this issue is important as the gap between the rich and poor constantly widens around the world. Both films have their own unique socio-economic context that influence their depiction of class. Nomadland being a North American drama western film set in the aftermath of the global financial crisis of 2008, shows Fern, the main character, living as a nomad after a corporation town is abandoned by both the inhabitants and the mining corporation itself. Parasite, on the other hand, is a black comedy thriller film set in modern-day South Korea. It shows the Kim family employing deception to progress in the rigid class divides that have formed yet tragically thrown back down. Interestingly, both of the contexts that these films emerge from are very capitalist. Bong Joon-ho says, before it's a massive sociological term, capitalism is just our lives. These films, rather than a call to arms to restructure the society we live in, unlike some traditional displays of the working or lower classes, display what can or is happening under the current system, causing the audience to become more emotionally involved and conscious of these shortcomings. This video essay will be split into 3 parts of capitalism. 1. The American dream and or the spoon class theory. 2. Materialism. 3. Individualism. To start, we need to know what the American dream and spoon class theory are. Firstly, Wikipedia defines the American dream as the notion that equal opportunity is provided to everyone to achieve their own sense of happiness and upward social mobility for their family and children. It is often accompanied by the assumption that anyone can be successful if they work hard enough. In Nomadland, the concept of the American dream is questioned or criticized through the lack of success and comfort that Fern receives as a result of all of her hard work. Nomadland constantly contrasts the mise-en-scène of the different seasons, both depicting the passage of time and the equally harsh environments that these nomads live in. This is supported particularly using color grading on similar shots to show a sort of drifting, aimless nature that Fern's life has become on the road. The only differing factor that separates these shots are their season, showing a difference of time. This is done to show that Fern is constantly moving and finding new places to work and earn money, yet she still isn't rewarded with the comfort of a higher class that the American dream suggests, and is still working to survive despite being retirement age. The spoon class theory, as defined by Wikipedia, is the idea that one's success in life depends entirely on being born into a wealthy family. In Parasite, the spoon class theory is more so shown than criticized by depicting the Kim family's inability to ascend. The Kim family residence is a basement under the road in a dense metropolitan area. The Park family residence, on the other hand, is isolated, has a fence and front gate, and is up on a hill. Kiwoo's trip to the Park family residence is communicated through a few shots, in which Kiwoo gets smaller in the frame, showing that these neighborhoods are far apart and that Kiwoo is becoming more insignificant. Bong Joon-ho uses this upstairs-downstairs dynamic to show how the family cannot ascend in the classes, especially when the semi-basement smell attaches to the Kim family, a constant reminder of where they came from. Zhao's criticism of the American dream continues when she shows the comfortable, successful life, where the harshness appears to fade when Fern is with her sister or with Dave's family. This harsh, desolate mise-en-scène that dominated the nomadic life is instead replaced by soft, lively houses of the suburbs. Even when it turns to winter again, the comfort of Dave's family home negates the harsh mise-en-scène. However, it is a decision by Fern not to accept offers into the comfortable life, highlighting the idea that the American dream cannot be achieved without help from those who already have it. By contrast, where Fern does have a way out of the harsher life, the Kim family are cast back down as dictated by the spoon class theory. They cannot escape their class. This is shown at the end of the film. Bong Joon-ho builds up hope through the imagination of Kiwoo, the hope that he could one day save his father from the basement. This scene is quiet, somber, which is reflected in the non-diegetic music. Bong Joon-ho rips away any sense of hope in the audience by revealing that it was solely in Kiwoo's imagination. What's more is the impossibility of the letter. There is no way that it could easily reach Kitek, reflecting the impossibility of Kiwoo's dream to save his father by ascending in the classes. In basic terms, materialism is favoring material items over relationships. In Nomadland, Zhao's depiction of materialism through Fern actually goes against the current American culture. Fern is not so much attached to the items themselves, like how expensive or rare they were. She's attached to the memories and the people they came from. This idea is shown throughout the film and is one of the first things the audience realizes about Fern. In fact, the opening scene of the film is Fern looking through her storage locker. This scene uses diegetic ambience to amplify the grief and sadness of Fern. This one shot emphasizes the abruptness of her grief, as she had to move out and adopt the nomadic life shortly after her husband passed. It's apparent that all the items she still has serve only two purposes, one being family memorabilia and the other being utility. By contrast, Parasite shows the extent of materialism in both the Park and Kim family through the use of objects as compensation for the strength of relationships. The contrast between the two families highlights their materialism. For example, in this scene, cuts are needed to capture each individual Park family member, whereas scenes with the Kim family often capture the entire family in one shot. This difference between the families heightens the use of stuff to compensate, exemplified in the scene where the Park family prepares to go away for the Song's birthday. However, this does not mean that the Kim family are less materialist than the Park family. In a tragic way, the Kim family's materialism is communicated through their desire to essentially become the Park family. This is shown in the scene after the Parks leave for their camping trip. Instead of encompassing the whole family in one shot, there are multiple cuts for each individual as they become more like a wealthier, higher class family. Individualism and collectivism are really two sides of the same coin. Where individualism prioritizes oneself, collectivism considers all parties. In terms of contexts, America is extremely individualist, with traditional American films glorifying this sense of rugged individualism. South Korea, on the other hand, is widely seen as a collectivist society. In America, individualism breeds a competitive environment, with psychologist Richard Ryan suggesting that it encourages unethical behavior at the corporate level. Nomadland does not so much reflect that statement, however, it does show that being an individualist is not what it is cut out to be. Zhao challenges individualism through showing Fern's dependence on others to survive. This is depicted in the scene where Fern goes to Swanky, a veteran van dweller, for help. Here, Fern is reduced from a free autonomous person to someone who is confined by her dependence on others to survive. Throughout the film, Fern is often viewed in center frame to emphasize the massive landscape around her, signifying freedom. When she goes to Swanky for help, the shots become a lot narrower. This visual restriction of freedom emphasizes what Swanky says when it jump cuts to Fern's tire being replaced.
You can die out here. You're out in the wilderness.
Note how Swanky is now in center frame and Fern isn't, showing a flip in knowledge and seniority. Parasite, despite emerging from a collectivist society, embodies the competitive world of capitalism that Richard Ryan suggests. All the Kim family's really precise conquest revolves around replacing other presumably working class people, the driver and the housekeeper, without any real sense of remorse. Older Marxist films would often replace the individual hero with the working collective. Bong Joon-ho uses this collective hero, but makes them ironically engage in extremely individualistic actions, challenging its South Korean collective context. Nomadland, on the other hand, continues to challenge the idea of individualism by showing the emotional costs it incurs. This scene shows the effects of Fern's actions in life hurt her sister. This is amplified using diegetic ambience to get the point across. Fern's decisions in her life, guided by this sense of rugged individualism, can be construed as selfish, especially in the context of Fern's support network of nomads, friends, and family. Her resilience to be self-made and independent is something to admire. However, Zhao makes sure that the audience understands that it is not that simple. Parasite's montage scene where the Kim family draws out a plan to get the old housekeeper fired is one that reflects the Kim family's precision and the commitment to their individualistic actions. In contrast to Nomadland, there is a noticeable lack of support for other working class peoples. The intercutting between Kiwoo and Ki-taek practicing their conversation with the actual conversation depicts the plan coming together perfectly. This is reinforced by the opera piece that plays throughout. This sense of perfection is supported by a few slow motion shots on linear camera moves, as well as the multiple times ideas are foreshadowed and then shown in action. This perfection shown in the montage scene is then destroyed when the twist occurs in the film. When the Kim family's new luxurious positions are threatened, they resort to murder, albeit accidental. Comparing these two films shows us the attitudes towards the inevitable evolution of capitalism. Instead of calling for a Marxist revolution that completely restructures the system, these two filmmakers seemingly ponder at the future of capitalism and what it means for us. Nomadland has a hopeful outlook, not of the system, rather of the people. Parasite has a contrastingly bleak outlook, undermined by the black comedy, achieving a unique balance. Brian Tellerico of RogerEbert.com notes this, saying that Bong Joon-ho's social commentary does not make the film feel like a didactic message. In both films, the current and perhaps future forms of capitalism are depressing. This drives the audience to want change.